Sweet surrender as I love, serve, and remember.
Just a refresher course. How many powers is there? One power. How many presents? One. That's right. So we're about oneness. And I really want to establish that because one of the challenges about talking about any aspect of God is it can feel like there's separation. So it's if we decide to focus on love, it doesn't mean we're focusing on love versus peace. It's not freedom versus joy. It's all contained in everything. So if you came into this world to discover more and more about love, that doesn't exclude all the other qualities of God because there's only one. And they're all intermixed, and it seems ridiculous to try to separate them because you can't separate them. But part of our growth is to say, oh, this is an area I need to work on. So we start to tease it apart a little, but it's not apart, it's all part of the one. So as we're looking at Mother's Day, or Mothering Day, love that, we are not separating it from Father's or Fathering Day. It's not mother versus father, masculine versus feminine. They're all intertwined. It's like the yin-yang symbol where the dark is in the light and the light is in the dark. You can't separate them. So even as we're talking about Mothering Day, even as we're talking about the qualities of feminine energy in our life, it's not separate and apart from something else. It's part of the oneness. And so you can say, well, the masculine's in there too. Yes, just like joy is in love. They're all intertwined. So I just wanted to create that as a foundation because otherwise it could feel very separating, like we're separating, or men are over here, or masculine energy is over here, and feminine energy, and they're very different. Like no, there's one. We're all in it together. That being said, so in this month, as I mentioned last week, I'm focusing on things that I've learned from my mom, acknowledging that she has her shadow side, and there were difficult things, but I'm not, because there's difficult things with just being alive in the human body. So I'm not really focusing on that. I'm focusing on the stuff that I was benefited from her. And I invited all of you to look at mothering energy in your life, and it could come through anyone. It could come through a book. It could come through a friend, an aunt, a grandmother, anyone. And just look at anyone who you see who had mothering energy in your life. And again, it doesn't have to be even someone you know. It could be on the other side of the veil, anything. But that mothering energy, and what were some of the gifts that mothering energy has given you? Part of the intention, I think, behind Mother's Day is to acknowledge and honor the gifts that the divine feminine brings us. So I'm going to be sharing some gifts that I've got, but I want you to find the gifts that you were received. So for me, one of the gifts my mother gave me was her awareness of people who were different than me. So down the street from where I grew up, there was a child who was neurodivergent. They didn't have that name there. And she was very clear with us, don't you dare ever call them a name, make fun of them, there was a lot of more negative names back then. I don't ever want to hear that. That person's already has challenges in their life. They're doing the best they can. Their parents are doing the best they can. And your response is to treat them with kindness and respect. She talked about handicaps people that way. I remember just one day at lunch, she's like, isn't it great that we're evolving to understand that we have to have ways for handicapped people to get in buildings? We never thought about those things before. It's like she was processing that awareness out loud. I remember one time we were at a dry cleaner's. I was just a little girl, and there were two children who were black, who were younger than me, and I was having the best time playing with them. We went into my car, and I said, oh, weren't they just so cute, Mom? And it was so fun. And my mom just had this, oh. And I was like, why is she acting like that? And I said, what's the matter? Did they do something? And she said, no, Harriet, but they're just going to have a different life than you. That's going to be a little bit harder than yours. And I said, why? And I thought she knew some secret about their family. And she said, no, because of the color of their skin. And I said, I was actually mad at my mom because I'm like, you can't say that they're going to have, because it didn't wrap around my head, but she was making me aware That there are people who didn't have some of the advantages that I had, and to acknowledge it. We would drive down, I grew up in Cleveland, we would drive through downtown Cleveland, and there were lots of poverty in Cleveland, and she said, I want you to see, this is how people live their life. Don't ever take for granted what you have. And your purpose, what you need to do is share compassion and care for those who have things that you have that they don't. She also taught me about cliques in school. I was in elementary school. She's like, well, there's always some kids who are the popular kids, and then there's the kids who want to be close to the popular kids, and they're kind of mean, and they decide. This wasn't even at junior high, this is elementary school. And I remember going to school and just start watching the dynamics of how the kids played. I'm like, oh my gosh. There's a popular group in my elementary school, and people want to hang out with them, and they're mean to some kids. And it was like this whole world opened up to me. My mom was giving me this beautiful gift to pay attention to the people who are rejected or denied or are invisible, and to remind me that everyone matters, and to connect with all people, and that they are all deserving of respect. And I was in a school system that continued those lessons that she was giving me. And to me, that's what so much of what the Divine Mother, if we look at Houston Smith, when he did his book on world religions, he looked at world religions from the ideal, not all the problems. As he said, religion's great until people got involved. So the ideal of the cosmic mother is that she cares, and I think it's not just an ideal, I think it's true. She cares for all life, deeply and passionately. She's attached, as Yogananda said. She's not indifferent. She's not distant. She's up close, and she's personal, and she cares. And one might say she cares about all of us in the places where we suffer the most in many ways, because often those are the places that go invisible. When you are caring for someone and there's one who's off on the side, don't you get worried about them? Are you okay? What's the matter? That's the Divine Mother. She shows up for those. So it's not just external, it's internal. As I went to college, I learned, this isn't just an external thing. There are emotions in me that I don't like, that I reject, that I dismiss, or I abuse parts of my inner self, that I'm violent towards in my speech and my thought. And so part of going to therapy was connecting with all these parts of myself that I had completely ignored and repressed and denied. So it's always an inside job, the Divine Mother, that divine feminine presence that is soft and caring and gentle and says, I hear you. I hear your pain. I hear your anger. And that Divine Mother might respond to us differently. Not might, she does. That what each child needs is different, what every inner emotion needs is different. And so it's not just about seeing, it's connecting, because through that connecting we develop understanding. And it's hard to shift how we are with somebody if we're not understanding who they are and where they're coming from. And that takes time, and that takes attention. And of course we can't do it for the whole planet, that's really exhausting, but you can do it for your world. Am I taking time to understand? And people have talked to me about this too, it's not just our people friends, it's our pets. I remember reading an article about 6 months ago about dogs there's introverted and extroverted dogs. I never thought about that. Some dogs just don't want everyone to come up and pet them. And we just assume all dogs want us to pet them. And they said, just pay attention to the dog and listen to the vibes it's giving out, because it might much rather you just be with it and not touch it. I thought, I never really thought about animals. Maybe you all do, because I don't have an animal right now. But maybe plants and trees and nature, that when we really become highly attuned and sensitive, when we become highly attuned and sensitive, we meet each need differently, and we can only know that by connecting. So for me, the Divine Mother is not about distance. In mindfulness meditation, you're witnessing everything. You're witnessing your emotions and your thoughts, you're witnessing life, but there's a distance to it. The Divine Mother is in there, and she's engaged, and she cares, and she's active. I have a water bottle right there. Excuse me, thanks. Thank you. So, thank you. So she cares about all aspects of who we are. So all 8 billion people, all life, all creation, we have this divine mother presence, this divine feminine presence that is always caring for us. And there's a lot of, we know about the history of the patriarchy, and sometimes we think with like the feminist movement that somehow she's just showing up now. Oh, she's always been here. She's always been active in our lives if we're paying attention. And what I think about is, it's not that she isn't here, it's whether we're paying attention to her and listening to her. So my first experience of the divine feminine came when I had just finished foundations class, in CSL's foundations class. Back in 1993, I went to San Diego for an International New Thought Alliance conference, played hooky with my friend, and we went to San Diego, Old Town, and there was an old Catholic mission church. We walked in, and I'd never been or maybe I'd been in a Catholic church once when I was really little, but I never really, as an adult, had not been in one. Walked into it, and there was a statue of Mary in a very prominent place. I was raised Protestant. I'm like, what is Mary doing here? Don't they realize Christianity is about Jesus? So I had my judgment. But as I went up close to her, I'm just pondering. I'm pondering what I learned in foundations class. Okay, so we have this symbol. And for those of you, the symbol, that's a one example of our symbol there. And so that blue part is what we call first cause. And that V is the creation process, so the seed, soil, and plant. But everything comes from the seed. All creation comes from first cause, from that divine idea. So I'm contemplating that. I'm thinking, as I'm looking at the statue of Mary, who's known to be, her claim to fame is being a mother, the mother of Jesus. So I'm like, well, if there's a first cause idea, and that I'm a product of that idea, and I'm a woman, there must be a first cause idea of woman, of a mother. That actually makes sense. And as I'm contemplating, it's just purely intellectual reflection on our foundations course and our symbol and the Divine Mother. And as I'm contemplating that, the statue in front of me comes alive, but not as a physical statue coming alive, but it's the energy. It's like it woke up. As soon as I realized I come from the Divine Mother idea, there's a first cause idea that isn't just father, it's also mother. It's one, but there is a feminine because I'm a girl, and that didn't come out of nowhere. And so she came in, and I became absolutely immersed in this Divine Mother energy. And the basic experience is one of joy and play and just delight. So I got really interested in the Divine Mother after that. Like, oh, this is a whole level of the divine, of this oneness that I've never explored before. I did a class on A God Who Looks Like Me by Patricia Riley. That was good, but I didn't relate. I only related to some of it. The other part I didn't relate it. There's a lot of experientials. That I did a book, Wendy Scott, The Divine Feminine. I couldn't find the book online. It was many years ago. But she did a guided meditation, so I worked with her one-on-one for about 6 months, all these Divine Mother guided meditations and rooms of the house, and it was cool, but it was still like, I'm not getting it. Like, I get it, but I'm not getting it. And then I know one of the things Mary and in the East, Kuan Yin is a big one, is compassion, tears, that she feels the pain and the sorrow of the world. And so I'm like, who is this Divine Mother, and why can't I get her? And what I finally came upon is, so on the one hand, she's totally about connection, but she's ephemeral. You can't, the moment you think you got her, she's gone, like a whoosh. Oh, this is what the Divine Mother, shh. Like, you can't hold on to her. You can't hold on to concepts of what this divine feminine presence is. She's like, I love that word, ephemeral. She moves and shape shifts to all 8 billion people, to all animals, to all plants. She cannot be limited to any one concept. that I mentioned before. I had a world's religions professor in school, and he talked about masculine energy, like, comes in through the front door, and it says, here's what my concepts are, here's what we teach, here are the principles, here are the values, da 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 da. He said feminine energy comes in through the back door. So if you have a house, it comes in through the front door, announces itself, so a lot of our major world religion does that. Here's what we believe, here's our doctrines, da da da. In through the back door comes the feminine energy, fills up the house, and you don't even know it's there, he said, because you can't hold on to it, but it's filled your house. And the example he gave, which I loved, was we were asking him which Eastern teaching had the biggest impact on the West, and we were basically deciding between Hinduism and Buddhism, and he said Taoism. Taoism, are you familiar with the book, The Tao Te Ching? Yeah, so if you're not, please look it up. It's a book full of these beautiful verses of spiritual truth. I like Stephen Mitchell's translation, because he brings in the feminine pronouns. But he said the Tao Te Ching is the energy, the flow that martial arts use. So in America, all these energy things that we do, whether it's all the various types of martial arts, Qigong, Tai Chi, all of them are bringing in the feminine energy, but through the back door. And you don't even know that you're understanding what that feminine energy is. So this is how it works. The Tao Te Ching, which is a beautiful book for those of you who have read it, I would never do a class on the Tao Te Ching. It never occurs to me, because in order to do the book about the Tao Te Ching, you have to say, okay, here's what it's about, and you'd have to look at all the different verses, and you'd have to analyze it, and you're talking about it, and it suddenly becomes something concrete. And it feels like you're almost killing the soul of the book by analyzing it, by being in a course, and here are the experience, you're turning it into a front door practice, and it's not a front door practice, it's a back door practice. It's something you have to feel, you have to intuit, you have to allow through. I think there's some interest in doing the Tao of Pooh, and you'll get the sense of how, it's a great book about Pooh Bear being a beautiful example of the Tao, and it's so simple, and there's no doctrine, there's no dogma, and the Divine Mother doesn't have dogma. She doesn't have borders and say, here's why stop and start. I'm flowing all of the time. And we connect with that. And so one of the things that I find so interesting about her and connecting with her and not being able to hold on to her is you have to develop your intuitive skills. You're not developing your analytical skills. You're not developing your theological skills. You're developing your intuitive skills. You feel it. You sense it. I was thinking about my mom and these caring about people that are less fortunate or didn't have the advantages that she didn't have those advantages, so I think she was attuned to the fact that we had them and she did it and she wanted us to be aware of it. But she got it from someplace else too. I mean, this was such a big deal for her, and it didn't come from her parents. Neither one of her parents did she get that from. And I think about it, I'm like, where did she get this from? And then you think about why you're here. What in you started you thinking and sensing that there's something more than whatever a mainstream religion taught you? Because there's so many vehicles of mainstream religion. Why didn't you just go there and be happy? Because there's something in you, and you might not always be able to put words to it or describe it, no matter how poetic our words are. We cannot still really you just can never get a hold of it, but you feel it. You intuit it. You sense it. And that's what actually draws you to read a certain book or have a certain conversation or to be interested in a group of people, because there's something inside of you that you can't quite articulate, but it's so powerful. And so what I think is really interesting is as clergy, this is Western tradition, started opening, so you had different mainstream Protestant churches that allowed women to become ministers. Interestingly, as that started to happen, women started entering all these divinity schools and seminaries, And often there were way more women now than men. That's why you have to have the rules to keep women out. Because women are very intuitive. No, I shouldn't say women, because that makes it seem separate. That feminine energy that's in all of us, feminine energy is very intuitive energy. That's teasing out of the oneness, this part of us that's very intuitive. And so when ministries start opening up, those people who have a lot of intuitive energy start being allowed to be in leadership positions. Now, leadership actually is a very masculine energy because it's through the front door. It's up here speaking. But what draws a lot of people is that which comes in through the back door. So, and then another interesting thing, a little side fact, as seminaries started to become more filled with people with feminine energy, the salaries of ministers started dropping way down. That when it was a primarily male or masculine energy job, had a little more gravitas to it or something, and there was a lot more authority given to it. As women have invaded that role, the salaries, and this started in the 70s actually, and it's been steadily going down. Just interesting little dynamics. But even in religions, like I've learned this with the Orthodox religion, that is still patriarchal in that only men can be priests. In Orthodoxy, they're allowed to be married, though, but only men can be priests. But in their monasteries, there's 4 women monasteries to every 1 male monastery. So women are still overflowing in numbers in that spiritual tradition. Because it's not about woman versus men, it's about that feminine intuitive energy, because it takes ultimately intuitive energy, and everyone has it in spades. If we, artists, musicians, whatever, all different types of people have this intuitive energy, but that's what spirit is. That's how we connect with the Divine Mother. We feel her pull, and we might not have used a her, we might have used a him, but it really is that feminine energy that feels your pull. So as you're looking at your life, we are looking at the feminine energy from a level of connection, connecting with all people, but especially those who have a harder time, connecting with all your emotions, but especially those emotions that have had a harder time, to bring that tenderness, that healing energy, because if we're about oneness, we have to attend to those who are in pain, externally and internally. And the Divine Mother cares about all of her children, especially those who are in pain. And she is always speaking to us. She is always speaking to us. She is highly active in our life, but we have to pay attention, because she's not coming in through the front door in your life. Sometimes people don't understand this, I have my phases, like I was really into Yogananda. I'm in this little phase of Orthodox Christianity, and people say, how could you do that? And it's because of the Divine Feminine. I had no interest in the theology of Orthodox Christianity. It was too constrictive, it was too dogmatic, I didn't believe a lot of it, and it was very exclusive. No. But what happened was, I was sitting in an office, actually here at St. Bart's. It was when they had a woman minister here, and she actually had been an opera singer. And I was talking to her about renting one of her spaces, and she had on her wall these icons. 20 years earlier, my friend had bought an icon and said, oh, isn't this beautiful? I'm like, no, that's ugly. Icons are not beautiful pieces of art. So, but now it's 20 years later, she leaves, and I'm just waiting for her, and it's like the icons on the walls are talking to me. They're like this magnetic energy. I'm like, what is that? So then I started trying to make appointments with her just so I could be with them. Because I couldn't figure out what it was. It's that you have to pay attention. I don't know what it was. So I thought, someone said, well, why don't you just go to an Orthodox church and see what it's like? So I said, okay. So I went on the day they started the introductory class. I went to the introductory class, they call it Vespers on Saturday evening. And then after the service, they do an anointing, and they anoint you. Now, I had never been, so I had nothing to compare it to. But what I've learned since is generally they take whatever oil, it's a little jar, and they anoint each person, and they're doing everybody, so the jar, becomes empty. So but I didn't know this. So for me, the first experience was of this extraordinary smell. When he anointed me, I'm like, and so then I came back just to get anointed, because that anointing oil was so powerful. And I would go to sleep. I didn't want to take a shower before church because it was so amazing. And what I can tell you is all the other oils after that didn't smell like that. That was a special oil, but it's an interesting thing because that was the first one I experienced, and it compelled me to want to go back. There was something pulling me that wasn't of me. Later on, one day, the priest came in. I was taking these introductory classes, and he was just like in awe. He said, "This oil is just amazing. It's a miracle." I'm like, I tend to be a skeptic, and why is it a miracle? So where he got this particular oil was in San Francisco, and actually I never looked it up until today. There's a saint. Oh, now I forgot it. There's a saint from the Orthodox tradition whose name I can't remember. No, I can't remember. And it's but the cathedral is called the Cathedral of the Holy Theotokos, which is of Mary. And he and his friends had gone down like a month earlier on a pilgrimage, and they went to the church, but there was a separate room that is usually locked and people can't get access, but some miracle happened and he was allowed into the room, and they have a icon of the crying Mary. And they had different jars to contain, because she just led this stream of tears. And he had a bottle, and so he got a bottle of her streaming tears of the anointment. And those were the things that I was anointed with. I didn't know anything from anything, but that was the oil that I was anointed with that first time I was there. And the reason why a few weeks later he came in awe of the miracle, he said, "I don't know what's happening. At the end of anointing everybody, the thing is almost empty, and I wake up the next morning and it's full again. I don't know how that's happening, and it keeps happening week after week." So I got to experience that oil week after week, and then one day it did eventually not refill. There is nothing that I can explain about what draws me there or why it's drawing me. I can tell you that there's a lot of women saints there that I never knew so much feminine energy, but I don't think, it's not an analytical thing. It's not like, I did take a class in Orthodox religion. I'm like, yeah, no, that's not it. So it's something, and I'm listening, and I'm paying attention, and it's miraculous, and it's amazing, and it's healing, but I still can't articulate it. And to me, that's what the divine feminine is sometimes. Sometimes we can't put that feminine energy like, well, here's how she helped me. Some people can, and some, I'm not, and maybe she helped you in different ways. But what I love about it, the church that this crying Mary is in, is the joy of all who sorrow. And I thought, isn't that a divine paradox? The joy of all who sorrow. And I thought about my first experience of the divine feminine, because it wasn't sorrow. I was playful and happy and joyful and running all over the place. And then the tears of connection and depth. And those two feelings are so intertwined. When we connect, we feel the profound joy of that connection, and we also feel much deeper sorrow. I think one reason why we detach is so we don't have to feel pain so badly. Since my mom has made her transition, there are times where the waves of grief come over me, and I just find myself sobbing because I miss her so much, and it's an ache in my soul that nothing can fill. And at the same time, I'm so glad I'm feeling it. I'm so glad that I have loved someone so deeply, and that I love her so much that my body aches to be with her again, because I don't feel that yet. I want to, but I don't feel that intense love for all people. That's the place we want to get to. So many of these saints, they talk about them just falling down, just crying out of their love for every being on this planet. They just love so profoundly. That's what the Divine Mother is carrying us to care so deeply, passionately, that we feel grief and sorrow and pain because we love the joy of the love of loving so deeply all beings everywhere. So as we talk about this world where there's so much separation and pain and fear, the energy we really need to be cultivating in our own life is this divine mother who cares about our fear, who cares about our pain, and cares about everyone else's pain, and is going to guide us into that healing energy. So we're filled with a profound joy and a profound grief by how we feel about everyone in our life, about this planet, about what's happening to this planet, what's happening to the people who don't have the advantages that we have, that we're not just going, oh, isn't that terrible? And it's not just rage, it's love. It's a love like we're all called to feel at the deepest cellular, soulful level. That's what the Divine Mother is here to help us connect with. Not just the distant witnessing, but that profound, life-changing love that hurts so bad and yet feels so good to love that deeply. That's how she feels about all of us. I think about how I feel about my mom, and I think, oh, that's how the Divine Mother feels about every one of us. She loves all of us. That's the tears. She grieves for any pain that we're in, because she loves so deeply, and there's such a joy in loving that deeply. It's so much richer than not caring, than being distant. So she's calling all of us on this beautiful Mothering Day to feel deeper, to love more, to care more in our heart for ourselves, for those parts of ourselves we reject, and for everyone who walks this planet, especially for those who don't have advantages. I just have to say this one thing, because people say this to me after service. There are people, so my mom wasn't pointing me to, well, and I want you to love as much the people who are really rich and well educated. Because I think of what Jesus said, they already have their gifts, and they might be causing problems. The only people he was ungenerous to were the Pharisees. The people that need the love are the people who don't have, or who are struggling, who are in pain. That's where our attention goes. In ourself, we all have our strengths, and we want to nurture our strengths, but the thing that we need to heal are those parts of ourselves that we ignore, that we reject, that we dismiss. So always the healing comes from those parts of ourselves we reject and dismiss, the people out there we reject and we dismiss, or ignore, or are invisible. That's the Divine Mother's role. And that her role happens through every one of us. We are all her vehicle. Yeah? That's Happy Mothering Day, to love so deeply. So go, please love deeply this week. Connect with those who might never know that you even notice them. Be sure you let them know you see them. And be sure you let yourself know that you are seen by her. And she's guiding you and healing you and loving you, even now. Let's pray. So we open our hearts, our bodies, our minds, our souls to her beautiful light. We let go of trying to grasp a concept of her. We just know that she's here. She's closer to us than hands and feet. She is in, through, and as all creation. She is not absorbed by that creation, but she is deeply, passionately involved and caring in this beautiful creation. We are all life, all sentient life form are her children. And she listens. She understands. She sees. There is no one invisible to the Divine Mother. There is no one or no thing that is invisible to her. And so today we open our heart to all those beautiful feminine energy where we've seen those people in our life who are so loving, who have cared for us. People we might not even have expected. Even I've heard, our animals, places where the Divine Feminine has worked through to show us how deeply loved we are, that we are not alone. So let's first and foremost give thanks for how she's already shown up in our life. And just take a moment to be present to the people and the presence that she has been in our life on all those her vehicles, all her various vehicles, and just give thanks and feel the love that we have been given. She knows, she feels, and she gives back to you 1,000-fold right now. Loving all creation unconditionally, passionately, tenderly, with the deepest and deepest of soul connection. She's always connected to us. She never abandons us, the Divine Mother. She never rejects us. She never ignores us. She is always, always connected. And the more we open and see and know that she's here, even if we can't grasp her, we just walk in knowing. We begin to feel her pull in different areas that are unique to each and every one of us. She cares for each one of us uniquely, so we feel her pull in our life in that unique way. And so for those divine presence and vehicles in our life, our mothers, our aunts, our grandmothers, our friends, our community lovers, animals and pets, all who have loved and been the vehicle of her in our life, we just give thanks, and we say yes to being her vehicle for others. We say yes to walking out this door and showering people with love who never expected to receive it, who felt completely invisible. We say yes to seeing, feeling, and knowing them in our hearts, in our prayers, and in our actions. We see only God. We see only love. And from this place, we are the healers of this beautiful, magnificent world. And in this, we just say, thank you, Divine Mother God. Into your heart, into your love, we surrender ourselves. We give ourselves to this unconditional, unlimited love. We say yes, yes, and yes yet again. And deep abiding love, we let it be. And so it is. Amen and amen.
I walk in God in all